it seems that there's a kind of remembering going on. It is very recent that our vision has been focused on like a foot in front of us. Until very recently, we were always aware of things at the very edge. That's where the genius lives. And stories tell us that when a culture is in crisis, it is not things right here that are going to help. In fact, what they're going to do is hypnotize. Lots of stories talk about the move from the village to the forest and back again. And for 4 days and for 4 nights, they would be alone in a cave or on the top of a hill or a deep forest where the living world itself would infuse them with its stories, with its bone memory. Those stories would be the thing that revitalized and re-galvanized the village. There is an imagination at play at which the human is only a participant in the imagination of the earth itself, the soul of the world, the soul of the world, and the stories that stick with us have a more than human intelligence in them. Catch a glimpse of that. What myth will do, it'll bring your naivety out into the meadow and it'll cut its throat. Myth says, listen, if you want to start the business of becoming a human being, at some point you have to trade a little innocence for some experience. This is when your betrayals come into the mix. This is when your heartbreak comes into the mix. This is when illness comes into the mix. If you only have an above ground perception of those things, they're just bad news. They're just bad news. But if you have a mythic underpinning, if you have a cultural understanding of it, it is an invitation to be troubled into conversation with your own soul. You and I need an uncolonized imagination. You ready for a story? One of the most compelling stories I've ever heard is The Handless Maiden. Do it. He raised that little silver axe. This is not a story where she, on her own, through her own individuation and heartbreak, grew her hands back. She grew them back in community. She grew them back in a community of women. That is a radical proposition in myth. We have to wake up. We have to come back to our senses. But I'm not going to close the door on the miraculous just yet. We're going to give you stories for each of the pockets of your jacket that you can carry through any number of situations. Start with that little story, the fox woman, the lindworm, tattered, the handless maiden. This is talking about unions within the psyche. She needs to cloak a story. This is a fabulous phrase. Be famous for 5 miles. How on earth do you get a story into your body? I draw a kind of skeleton map. So once you've located where you are in the story, you are yourself today, right here, going to tell the damn thing. And whatever kind of life you're having, underneath it is a deep story, and we're going to connect you to it. To speak from that, to speak from an earth that thinks in myth, was what I set out to do, and is now what I do and teach.